Well, welcome everyone to the Niagara Arts and Cultural Center. It's so nice to see you here today. We are in the old former Niagara Falls High School building. 180,000 square feet of former classrooms are now studio spaces. Other spaces are public spaces like the Townsend Gallery that we're in right now. This was our former cafeteria. We were saved from the wrecking ball with a community effort, grassroots, bottom up, and we're at what we think of as a turning point right now, going the next level up. So Monday Mixers are our way to say hello to the community, to bring people in to introduce different topics to us there's a wide range. Our Monday Mixers are the first Monday of most months, not every month. Maybe there's 2 months that we don't have them. They are open to the public, and now we're starting to have them recorded so that we can view them online and people can participate in some kind of internet forum. Coming up Monday Mixers are tonight, Knack Gallery Visions with Ray Robertson and Dana Terrell. April 4th, Making Films in Western New York. May 2nd, Food Styling with the Starry Night Cafe, which is right across the hall. Stir It Up with Mary Ricciardi and Rosemary Tonti from the Board of Directors. They're going to make something. These are free to the public, and we hope that you will join us. So tonight we have our presentation with our two Knack co-gallery directors. They're getting to know each other as we were getting to know the two of them working together. So please enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, for that fantastic introduction. Based on what Catherine said, Ray and I have been getting to know each other about 3 months now, ever since I was brought on board as gallery co-director. So I want tonight to be kind of looser and free-flowing, and I'm going to mostly put the pressure on you because this is your exhibition, after all, that we're sitting in. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Dana Terrell. I'm the co-director of galleries here at the Niagara Arts and Cultural Center. I'm also an artist and writer. My work is in the permanent collection of the Castellani Art Museum, which is very well represented in our audience this evening. And I've exhibited all over Western New York in my own right as an artist. And Ray, you want to say a little bit about yourself?
No. This is a transition period for me, very important, in that going from a producer to one who has to educate himself, become more aware of the other side. Art as a product, art that needs to be distributed, art that is dealing with consumers and distributors and other artists. Okay, so I have to come out of my world and come into the real world. So it's very important to me, and I have to keep myself tuned to the fact that there's a lot to learn. Okay, I've always looked at this place as a factory or their producers. Okay, but now that I'm gallery director, I have to look at it in a different way. Okay, and I'm trying to be as unselfish as possible, and I thought that I did a pretty good job when I put this show together. There were thank you. There were latecomers. There were very latecomers, and I sacrificed my spaces to those people. Okay, because I felt it's not about me. It's about the show. And even though I don't feel this was the best show of the 11 years, it was the best show in a different kind of way, in that we brought people in that had never shown before. And that was something that really touched me especially it brought out some of the feelings that I had as an artist who didn't know he was an artist, because in my community, there was no professional artist around. There was no one who had a studio, a real studio, such as I have today. Thank the NAC. Okay, several, many studios, thanks to the NAC. But so I think a lot about this whole thing. I think a lot about the show. I think a lot about art. I'm glad to be with Dana, 2 generations removed. Okay, I mean, I tell him I got grandkids older than you. Okay.
We have talked about this. He is my father's age, so just one generation.
Just one generation, okay.
So, very interesting time in my life. And I see the challenge is not as stressful as I thought it once would be, okay? So I'm just kind of floating through this. I feel confident as a producer, okay? And I know that my weaknesses, as I said, is one, that machine called a computer, and looking from another side of the on the other side of the fence, okay? I'm a producer who is now dealing with other producers, hopefully in a non-selfish way, hopefully in a way that I'm going to promote them as I promote myself, but at least I'm going to promote them as vigorously as I would promote myself. That's where I'm at, okay? So in terms of this show, I started it some 11 or 12 years ago. And again, it goes back to my early days of being a creative person. I'll call myself a creative person because I didn't call myself an artist, but as far back as I can remember, I was always making things, okay? I was always putting things together in a variety of mediums, okay? I would do fashion design. I won several prizes designing Halloween costumes. During my school years, whenever we had a project, I would generally make some physical kind of thing to relate to my essay or whatever. But in terms of what's going on now, I would like to field questions. I would like to see what you think. And see, I see several artists out here already. So I was hoping there would be some more non-artists out here that would pick my brain as to why we do what we do and why we're so crazy. But, but you know, still, I would like questions from you as to this show. I have a million questions. I have more questions now than ever before in terms of like even personally, okay? As I approach 73, money is starting to fade. I know I never had any and I probably won't have any. So now what's left? Well, what's left is so rich that I feel blessed. I feel this is the most creative period in my life, okay? I see so many projects undone, waiting to be done, and I'm almost there. So I welcome any questions that you might have. Yes.
My question is about how you welcomed people into the show, you know, given some people were more advanced as artists and people had never shown before. You know, how did you recruit people for the show? How did you make them feel like it was okay to exhibit their work?
Okay, that goes back to my own feelings of how I felt when I first started to exhibit, okay, which would be in Buffalo in a small gallery owned by one person, okay. And then I do have to say that I did work for the Castellani when it was on the Vogue campus on Lewiston Road. But I had to think about how intimidated I felt and how unsure of myself I felt. And with this show and with all of them, I tried to erase those barriers like who's good, who's bad, who's young, who's old, who's experienced, who's not experienced, how good is this, who's judging that, and to take away as many barriers as possible. Because we all started somewhere, and all of us, none of us were good from the beginning. Maybe we had it in us, but we didn't start out running, we started off crawling. And so like, let the crawlers in too, okay? Let them be with those that's running full speed. Let the marathon people and the crawlers come together, and they both can grow. I got as much out of the young people and those inexperienced people as I got from those, what I call my equals or whatever you call it, your
Veterans.
yes,
Peers.
all of those good things that we call ourselves when we say, I've been at this a long time, I've been around the block and I know this and I've done this and I've done that, and I've shown here and I've shown there and this and that and the other, okay? All of that aside, okay, what is the essence of this? And the essence of it is spirit, okay? And the whole question is an artist born or is an artist made? And I'm leaning toward the born, okay? Because we did interviews of the artists participating in this show. And time again, we ran across this thing. Well, I just started doing this. I don't know why, you know, and I just did it. And we talked about issues that touch my heart in terms of support, okay? I would say in general, artists are not supported in the general culture. And when we come to the minority culture, even worse, okay? Just not supported. I was telling Dana, I can remember, because again, like I say, I was an artist and didn't know it. When I was a kid, I took down my bed, took it out the dresser, and made just an empty room, slept on the floor, just to have room to do the things that I was doing. And I'll never forget it. And don't get me wrong now, I love my father and he saved my ass, excuse me, more than once, okay? Especially here when I was down with cancer and I got deep in the hole in terms of rent. And he saved me, but I never forget, I was maybe 11. It had to be in the 5th grade because that's when we made a move to another location. So I remember this room very clearly. And he came in my room and he looked around and he said, "What is all of this shit? What is it?" And I'll never forget that, okay? Now, that's not exactly supportive, okay? All right? And like I say, when we did these interviews with the video, time and time again, I heard that word, non-support, that I was just doing it, and usually there's a savior amongst his social system. My mother was my savior, and so much it's like, will you leave the boy alone? Just leave him alone, you know? And I ran across that same scenario in our interviews, okay? And I also ran across the fact that nothing in the minority or the inner city environment, now I won't say nothing, that's not right, very little could be used as an example, okay? Like I say, no studio, no gallery, nobody practicing. People just doing their art thing, but nothing consistent, nowhere you could go and get lessons. So that was the impetus to starting this show some 10, 12 years ago, okay? And when I first started it, I wanted it to be an annual show. So the very first year I started it, I used the word annual because that's what I had in mind. I wanted this to be forever, not forever, but on and on and on. Consistent and stable, okay? Not just a celebration of Black History, because actually, I didn't do it for Black History Month. I just did it because of the lack of the environment that was conducive to producing, or rather nurturing, creative talent, okay? The fact that it happened during Black History Month was more a coincidence than anything else, okay? I could have started it in October or January or whenever, but it just happened to be during the month or near the month of February, which is Black History Month. But actually, like I say, it was just the feeling that I had when I see young artists or young people being creative with nowhere to go.
So
and no support.
that brings me to a question I have. You and I very broadly talk about community a lot of the time. I was wondering if you maybe spell it out for everyone that's here, what community means to you, how community translates through this exhibition in particular.
Well, community means to me is just simply where I grew up in the environment in which I grew up in. You know what I'm saying? And the things that influenced me and how I might influence the community. And of late, I see that I did influence the community. I had a little shop there on Highland and Fairfield, and it was not exclusively art, but it was just started off being a photo studio. But what I'm saying is that over the years, several kids that weren't kids anymore. I mean, I had a guy come in to have his kids photographed. At least I thought they were his kids. And I did a lot of substitute teaching in this school system here. Just about every school in the system, including this one. Okay, I graduated from here in '67 and went to a state in UB, and in the '70s, mid-'70s, I did a lot of substitute teaching, and this was one of the places. But anyways, I had this person as a student at North Junior, and I said to him, "Oh, Vincent, you brought your kids to be photographed." He says, and they called me Teach. Teach, these are my grandkids. I said, "Oh, okay." What I'm saying is that those young people, just seeing that little bitty studio had influence that I wasn't even aware of, okay? So when I think about community, I simply think about where I lived and what was going on, okay? And it was really quite limited as I look back, okay? Example, I got one of the worst report cards I ever got here, I think, in the 9th grade or so, trying to fit in, okay? Coming from Lewiston Porter, hello, okay? Yeah, back to Niagara Falls, okay, trying to fit in, and you read books, and you can't play basketball, and you can't dance, and look at those shoes you're wearing. Where did you come from, okay? So, cultural shock, okay? And what are the things that the community pushes? And it's almost exclusively athletics. So the creative people, the creative young people, they were like me, considered weird, pushed to the side, and nowhere to go. So now, hopefully, a show like this will maybe knock down some barriers, okay? So I don't have to know how to play basketball. I can paint, I can play music, you know, I can write poetry. There's a place, you know, there's a place for me, there's a place to exhibit, there's a place to touch other people.
So you touched on this earlier. I wonder if you could tell us a little more about how being an artist informs your curatorial practice.
Yeah, and it's it causes me a lot of deep thought. It does, especially when it comes to judgment. Okay, and trying to get outside of yourself, outside of your own work. Okay, outside of the fact that I think my stuff is pretty good. Okay. Get outside of that, okay, and to see other artists and what they're trying to do and helping them to do what they're trying to do, to speak, to amplify what they're saying in their own ways, visually or by word or whatever. But as a producer, makes me sensitive to the artists. I think it makes me treat artists in a more gentle way than perhaps somebody that wasn't an artist and a curator might look at this in a more business way. And I would be the first one to admit that perhaps I need to look at this more in a business way. Look at what people do, what I do as a product. And see, that's always a big thing. It's a product, but it's not a product because it's got part of your soul in it. Just a little piece. Okay, so now, how do you deal with that? How do you respect another's soul in a piece of art? How do you do that? You know, is there a way? For me, it's brand new territory, okay? That I'm on the other side of the fence. Okay, I know that I'm sensitive. I have deep respect for artists. I have deep respect for creative people, whether they're experienced or not, whether they're accomplished, recognized or not. So that's where I'm at, okay? And that's, to me, that's the positive side. What's lacking is the fact that, like, hey, I'm inexperienced when it comes to the distribution, the marketing aspect, and those kinds of things.
But that can be a good thing.
Well, I hope so. I hope so.
Because you do not know the limitations that normally people in that administration do have placed on themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thank you.
Any questions? No questions?
I was wondering, before we open it up to questions more generally, maybe tell us a bit more about what inspires you, what keeps you going with both art making and curating, because you're someone who really like walks the walk and talks the talk.
At least I try to. Like I say, I think that I was an artist all my life. Okay, but what inspires me most is nature, at this point, plants. Okay, to me, plants are living sculptures. Okay, and the color of a flower and the color of a pigment, they're not the same. They're not the same. The color of a flower does something to me. It causes a vibration in my brain, whereas the color of a pigment, it doesn't. I can't explain it, but some flowers, I really just have a high almost from it. Okay? Flowers and the colors of flowers, and I'm a plant collector and grower, and the sculpture of God, I mean, it's just awesome. I mean, I can't really put it in words what nature does for me. And that's my inspiration. I mean, the grain and the piece of wood. I'm an avid driftwood collector. Anybody that's been in this building knows that.
Second floor.
Yeah. And so my inspiration definitely comes from nature, but it also comes from found objects or objects that's going through transformation. And Dana and I were talking about the process of decay, okay? And remaking. That decay is a positive thing.
It's a generative process.
A generative process. Thank you. That, and you see, I'm a practitioner for 20-odd plus years of Tai Chi. And Tai Chi is the physical component to the philosophy of opposites, or yin and yang, okay? And truly, when I do my sculptures and collages, balance is what puts it together. And believe it or not, sometimes you can put something together and it balances, and when it's in physical balance, it's in visual balance. I found that, okay? And it's intriguing to me. So, again, it's nature that inspires me, in particular plant life, in particular certain types of plants, like cacti, like certain kinds of, it's not cacti, it's in between like aloe and those kinds of things. But, and moving water, okay? Again, it comes from my practice of Tai Chi, and that obsession with balance, okay? And understanding that all things here on the planet in creation are seeking balance. And so, thus, I seek balance in my work.
Thank you. So thank you, Ray. Let's open up for questions. Anyone have any questions for both or either one of us?
Yes, Dana? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, dear.
Oh, I just wanted to ask what your vision is for some of the future exhibitions for this gallery?
Yes.
You want to start and I'll take a second?
Hmm?
You want to go first?
Yeah,
We each have a vision.
Yeah. Well, I certainly want to include more minorities in this process, in exhibiting, and this my next big project will be Minority Women. Minority Women, an all-woman show, okay, and then an all-kids show, just kids, you know, kids of every culture, just kids. And I just want to see how young we can go, okay? Just how young we can go if we present these 4-year-old efforts, if we present it as if it's a professional piece, meaning well matted and framed and presented. What will happen, okay, if we go from K to 12? So that's a big project that I want to get into, okay? And not only to have them show their work, but have those little minds speak on it, okay?
And I would say, kind of dovetailing off that, my vision for the exhibitions here, as someone who's coming into this with a completely clean slate, would be to reinforce the relationships that we've already built into the communities that we work with, whether it's the indigenous community or the Latinx community, but also building on that to include LGBTQ people and broadening the reach that the NAC has. Because I feel the same way as Ray. Growing up in this region, there wasn't a lot of paths into art, and I feel like I truly stumbled my way into it. So my mission is to make it easier for other people.
Yeah.
Next question.
I think that should be one of the primary objectives of the NAC itself. I really do.
Go ahead, the next question.
I just follow up to that because you mentioned women of color and young artists, and one of the artists on display here today is the young artist Legend.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of hits all three of those. Could you just speak to Legend and how you managed, follow up to that other question? How did Legend get here in this show?
Well, I think, well, she was here before I got here. Okay.
Yeah.
Her mother was Samika was the director of the children's program. Okay, and she's a very outspoken and very bold little child. Okay, kid, whatever. But the thing about it that's important is there are others like her out there.
Right.
Okay, and she had an avenue that she was blessed. Her mother put her in this environment, and there are so many mothers out there that's not even thinking like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how can we build bridges? How can we build bridges?
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after this exhibit is over, how do you feel like you as the NAC and we as the community can continue to nourish artists for the next step, especially new ones?
Well, myself, I'm going to be constantly on the hunt. Okay, that's my nature. Okay, I'm more of a hunter than anything else. I've started several businesses, and I was an excellent collector, excellent finder, but when it came to the business end, I fell short. So along those lines, I plan to have my ear open all the time for new people, and especially the young, and especially those places where we don't expect to find them. When I started this show, I really dug deep. I went and I knocked on doors, okay? And, oh, well, I don't really have anything, and this and that. Yes, you do. What about this piece? I can make this piece look good. Okay. But I don't have the $30. Don't worry about it. Let's just get this out here. So that's one of my skills. I'm a good hunter, so I plan to heighten that and just work with finding new talent, finding areas that haven't been explored. As a matter of fact, I was talking to somebody in the Arab community, and I was telling Dana, he said something that kind of fascinated me and made me think deeply, because it kind of related to the community in which I grew up, okay? And we talked about it in terms of whether it was a cultural thing or an economic thing, okay? He said, I was looking through the Buffalo Evening News because I had heard that there was an article about this show in the Buffalo Evening News. So I went to the local store, which was owned by Arab people, and I said, I'm looking for this, and there's an article about my show in here. And the guy said, well, I do some drawings. I said, oh yeah, let me see them. He showed me. He says, but I don't tell anybody because it's not looked on favorably in the Arab community. I said, why not? he said it's kind of looked at as like a waste of time, that you should be using your time more constructively, meaning more productive in terms of money and making a living and those kinds of things. And it rang a bell, because that's a thing in the black community. Okay, it's a thing that I face. Why don't you get a job? Get a real job, okay? And why should we support you when you're having fun and we're making money? Well, I try to explain to them that being an artist is not so much fun, but I could tell they didn't get it, okay? But it was interesting to hear that from him. And I said, well, okay, that's an area we can explore. We can break that. We can, because if you're doing it, that means that other people are doing it undercover, in secrecy, don't want to tell your dad, don't want to tell your brothers, because they'll say, will you quit it? Will you do something constructive? So I found that very interesting.
And I'd say, going off that, back to your question, is, in my experience, I've seen this from both sides as an artist and a curator. It really just takes one person to support you and believe in you and give you just that, even like a glimmer of hope to keep you going. And so I would say the best way you can support someone is to support them, buy their artwork if you can, research them, meet them where they are in terms of communication, social media. The world is much more accessible than it was 20 years ago. So I would say just do the homework and encourage people. Encouragement goes a long way for people who make things often in very solitary conditions.
Yeah, and to add to that, this young lady sold a piece, and you should have seen her when she
dropped the stuff out.
when she found out that somebody bought it. You should have saw her. I said, okay. I said that was great. And then there was another piece. So right behind you, Ari, that piece, okay, and it was bought by the news reporter for the Gazette. Okay, so these are people that had never shown before. So that's great.
And so it's not only the financial encouragement that it's an investment in someone's career when you buy a piece of their art, and instead of like a poster from, not MediaPlay doesn't exist, whatever that equivalent is now, Amazon. It's an investment in someone's work, but it's also you invest in their creative soul.
How do you help artists price their work? Because that's a real challenge I find with artists. Challenge in the sense of price it to sell or price it.
Yeah, and I'm still struggling with that. What do I charge for that piece? Okay, and I still don't know. Okay, is it some formula? Okay, it was once worked out that we make about $2.50 an hour. Okay, I don't know who worked that out. Probably another artist, but I don't know. I struggle with that too. But basically, I try to let that person price it. Like the young people and everybody in here, I had absolutely nothing to say about how they would price their work, except for those that said, I really don't want to sell it. I said, well, jack it up really high, okay, because I want to show it, okay, or make it a price that you can't refuse. You said you didn't want to sell it, but at that price, you maybe so. Yeah.
And conversely, you can price it for accessibility. If someone's making prints or multiples, you can price them really low, and that's another entry point into someone's work and an easier way to support them financially too. Yeah. I try to avoid directly advising people on how to price their work because I truly don't know how to price my own. So the blind leading the blind.
Oh, I do. I tell them how to price it. Do you want to sell it or do you want to take it home and sit on it for 20 years? Sell it. It's better it gets in someone.
I'm sorry.
It's better it gets in someone's house for a smaller amount than you take it home and sit on it for 20 years and never sell it. So that's a challenge I think we all have.
Yes, ma'am.
On the other side of that challenge, is that I tell some of my young artist Padawans that things that you really put your effort, your spirit, your blood, and your sweat into, do not move off of that initial price.
Mm-hmm.
It is, if that piece of artwork is what you stated to be. I've had several paintings I priced at thousands of dollars. They still sit there.
Right.
But there are other things that have moved quickly for, let's say, 500, 200 and on now. But those are things that we use to sustain ourselves. But the things that are really precious, because I know within an amount of time, either while I'm alive or dead, that piece of artwork will carry on within its range. And now with the new era of, was it trade NFTs,
Garbage.
the whole thing has now changed. Well, I said that because I worked at one of the larger galleries, and when digital art, computerized art came in, we balked and we screamed and we spit on the ground behind that. But you see what has occurred now in this modern day, many artists cannot even function or present without being able to be digitally competent. So on that NFT thing, let's wait and see where it goes, because one category of that is that the monetary worth of whatever is purchased goes directly to the artist. And that's been a hard thing for us, continuing all the way through. And if that can occur, that you get the bulk, it's just like with recording music. If the royalties go directly to you, why not?
The artists don't get royalties. Buyers don't care how much you put into it.
If you do T-shirts and baseball caps and logos and emblems, then you get a portion of that. But, I digress. But I wanted to hear more about you, Dana. What's your experience?
What would you like to know?
How long have you been in the art world? What type of art do you do?
I was born in the, no, I'm kidding. I've been, I feel so fruity calling myself an artist still. It's like, I'm an artist. I should be wearing a beret. No, I'm an artist. I consider myself a serious artist. I've been in the arts community for about a decade now, really, curating for about 5-6 years, writing for a couple years. I make sculpture. Like Ray, I source a lot of my material from ephemeral and natural means by way of not participating in the capitalist art industrial complex. And I really, I believe in grassroots organizations. I cut my teeth curatorially working with LGBTQ groups and DIY nonprofits, and I've really worked up from there. And arts, it's my passion, and I feel incredibly lucky to walk out of my door and do it every day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Breath of fresh air.
Yes.
Just to comment in all of this, I have a friend who actually did something here at the NAC not too long ago on coloring book for opera stuff. And she is currently in a major of her own making called Artpreneurship in Art. Because I think talking about pricing, one of the things that I keep hearing about is, people in all disciplines, but in the arts, how do you value what you have to offer? And I think that's what you're talking about, How do I go, if you're talking to the IRS, for example, about your paintings that you sold, well, how much paint did you put on it? How much did the canvas cost? Et cetera, and then how much did you make beyond that? So what you owe is anything above $100, let's say, to the IRS. But many, I think that artists, most artists, don't think of the business aspect of their artwork.
I would agree, and if I may,
I agree with that also.
just to clear on your point earlier, Ari, something that I would like to see more of in the artist community is once you do price something, whether it's $50, $500, that price should be maintained and consistent no matter where you're exhibiting, because it's an unprofessional gesture to have it for $5 here and $10 here, and it confuses your market. So because if you don't have consistency, you can't have a market. But back to the entrepreneurial point, you really have to have an entrepreneur spirit to do this, and you either have a thick skin or you grow one fast, because you have to not only be good at painting, but like I spend my day working on marketing, in Photoshop, writing press releases. You have to have a wealth of skills to draw from to be able to really churn butter in this.
Well, you have to think about the commissions that are gonna be charged if you go through a gallery or through.
That's the other thing too, yeah.
And
hmm
Galleries
We-
are like agents.
Any
Can
of,
I ask you a question?
yes, ma'am.
This is completely
Just speak up, Ray.
sidebar,
Yeah.
but, yes, we concerned with artists, our work, our process, even our pricing. But, this is a question to all here. To cultivate a true collector community, because those are the people that are our patrons, are the people would be beneficial. Once you get this grouping of people who are collectors of artwork, then they follow whatever particular artist, like the young lady that bought this. She might continue to collect just this one artist for her own edification.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's a very good point, because
Speak
in
up
particular,
just a little.
can you hear me?
Yes.
I think that's a very good point, especially concerning this place, because like I said before, this is more like the factory. We have some excellent producers here,
Mm-hmm.
okay? But we do not have a stable of buyers. Okay, so that's a challenge for the two of us and for this agency,
Mm-hmm.
because we're so strong on producers. This man here, excellent. Okay, we have excellent artists in this building. I mean, giants, in my opinion.
I mean, hello.
Okay, but we don't have a stable of buyers. So how do we do this? Okay, and I would say, I would openly admit, I'm not the best person for that, but I'm certainly gonna get out here and start learning how. Okay, so that's important. But before we close, I have to touch on the spiritual aspects of what we do, because that, to me, is the most important thing, okay? I would venture to say all the greatest art in the world was spiritually inspired,
Mm-hmm.
okay? The cathedrals, you know, the great paintings, carvings, whatever. And so, as I approach the end,
Middle.
the winter, the spiritual aspect is growing, okay? And I feel so good about the spirit of art, the doing, okay? And not worrying about anything else. And I know that's idealistic, but nonetheless, it's real, okay? that if you are a creative person, learn and accept the beauty of that, okay? And yes, you have to pay the rent, okay? And you need food, but you also need food for your soul, okay? And I can think of no better way than the creative process.
One last question, then we'll close.
Just a comment related to, everybody needs an audience. Opera needs an audience, and I'm hearing today that artists need an audience. And that's the other, you know, if you don't have an audience, you're not going to have that interaction that maybe leads to future creativity. So we're on the same
Yes,
wavelength.
we agree. We agree. Thank you, Ray.
One last
Thank
question,
you.
anyone?
This is one of the things that doesn't happen often within our art community, where other artists are able to gather, and people that appreciate art are able to gather and just bump heads together and bounce ideas off each other's noggin. Some are hard, some are soft, some are, you know, like open sponges. But thank you, and Dana, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, that was a wonderful way to think about
Good
that.
job.
That's
Thank
my
you.
mother, and we're having an opera. In October, so La Boheme. So we'll look forward to that. Thank you both. Thank you for coming, and we're happy to see everyone. Enjoy the reception next door, and we'll be here for about another half hour. Thank you.
I know.